I'll review what I want. Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, bit late, but I'm talking about the latest full-length album from Bluetech, Liquid Geometries. Bluetech, aka Evan Mark, or Evan Bartholomew, is a dub/down-tempo artist from San Diego. And this is a release from the tail end of last year that I really wanted to cover but ran out of time. Technically not even the guy's most recent release. He released another EP just the other day, but I've had this lying on my computer for a while. I wanted to talk about it real quick. Basically, this guy's in that same mold of down-tempo artists as Sounds from the Ground and Magic Sound Fabric, those kinds of guys. Hope you're not sick of me recommending artists in that mold. But if you like stuff like that, Bluetech out to be on your radar. He probably has more EPs out now than he does albums at this point, but he has enough albums for me to do a quick rundown of his studio album discography so far. Pretty nice SFTG-esque dub down-tempo IDM hybrid, mostly electronic sounds with a couple of more organic textures here and there, some glitchy elements, some very nice melodies and grooves all around. A lot of great moments on this thing, even as a remix of SFTG's big single Triangle. Made even better by one version's inclusion of the Elementary Particles EP, which has even more great moments on it. Pick that version up. Excellent stuff. Basically the same album as the last one, but slightly less memorable for me. Still quite enjoyable though. This is a shorter album than other ones of his, not a huge stylistic departure from what came before either, but it's absolutely excellent from front to back. Actually pretty hard-hitting as far as this genre goes. More of the same, but still good. Okay, this one actually sounds pretty different from the usual. Leans a lot more into the dub reggae elements with plenty of guitars and horns, not to mention a lot of tracks with vocal guests. It has a really bright and lively atmosphere that really captivated me, and I think is absolutely worth your time. Fantastic album. Okay, admittedly I like the title and album cover here more than the album itself. Stylistically it's kinda same old for him, but it's still a pretty damn solid release here too. The profits for this album go towards fighting deforestation, so all the more reason to pick it up. This is a much more straightforward, ambient-centric release, bit of a change of pace for him. Not entirely beatless, a lot of tracks have cascading synth arpeggios that create a kind of pulse, but you're not gonna find much in the way of drum textures here. Much more low-key than usual. Cool stuff. And there was this thing he did with In the Branches last summer. Totally missed it when it came out. Pretty similar to the previous release, but with a spacier edge to it, I guess. Again, cool stuff. And that's just part of the catalog. That isn't including his various EPs like Cosmic Dubs and Basement Dubs, Space Hop Chronicles. He has a 4-part EP series called The Four Horsemen of the Electrocalypse, the final volume of which is the above-mentioned one he just released the other day. Not much in the way of discussion material for those, but you can go check those out if they look interesting to you. Also not including stuff he's released under his own name, but I don't want to keep you too long. If you're intimidated by this back catalog, my highest recommendations go to the expanded edition of Prima Materia with Elementary Particles, also Phoenix Rising, and Love Songs to the Source. Those are my personal favorites. Anyways, let's get right into Liquid Geometries, his latest full-length outing. I admittedly don't have a ton to say about this particular album. I'd be lying if I considered it among the best work he has to offer, but I did enjoy it though. And I think Bluetech is an artist worth highlighting in general, hence the existence of this video. But may as well talk about this one. So, it appears to me that Liquid Geometries is for the most part an expansion on what Bluetech did on his Dreaming into Being album. There's not a single drum pattern to be found anywhere on here. Maybe like a tambourine or two on one track. And there is often a pulse made by all these layers upon layers of cascading synth arpeggios. And though those arpeggios actually do appear to be more of a focus than they were on Dreaming into Being, pretty much every track on the album centers around them specifically. Seems for the most part this is kind of trying to be some kind of Tangerine Dream homage, calling back to the synth masters of old. Much in the same way something like Nachtplank's Nemec Khan was at the beginning of last year, but not specifically trying to utilize sounds of the 70s like that one did. He's providing his own modern flair on it. And he can really get this stuff to sound good. All the layers of synth progression sound great on top of each other and create a really immersive and relaxing atmosphere as you'd want from an album like this, and without sacrificing texture at any point, all creating a very detailed and warm and picturesque experience. But again, I'm not going out of my mind with enthusiasm for this album. Part of it is just because I have heard no shortage of material just like it. I listen to a lot of downtempo and ambient material, as we all know, and this doesn't do a huge amount to set itself apart from the crowd. It's produced well, for sure, and sounds great, but I don't know, I kinda wanted more out of Liquid Geometries than what I got. I think really my main problem is, a lack of diversity. You'll notice I haven't really mentioned anything from an individual track basis for this album, and that's kinda because everything has pretty much the exact same ingredients. Not to say I can't tell at all when tracks begin and end, or that they have no distinctive flavor apart from each other at all, but it's mostly not in a super obvious way that I can really put into words. I can say, for instance, that Subterranea was more slow-moving, had a much darker vibe, or that Underground Lakes was a neat, soothing, straight drone piece, or I could compare the refreshing tones of Dawn Ascent to the more dramatic tones of Tranquility Gate, or I could say that Resonating Heart had a cool transition from some warmer tones to some more dissonant ones later on. But for the most part, the difference between tracks are pretty subtle, just different patterns and melodies being applied to the same general idea. Now, I don't necessarily disapprove of that in theory. I mean, he still keeps my attention decently well, but I don't know, other previous releases of his could do better in that department, and I think we're much better off for it. I just tend to enjoy Bluetech more the more diversity he brings to the table, but whatever. At the end of the day, I still think this is a good album. It didn't really deliver anything I hadn't already heard before, but it was well executed enough for what it was trying to do, and I appreciate it in the context of bringing more diversity to the Bluetech back catalog in general. I do always like it when an artist doesn't totally play 100% to their comfort zone, and while he has done similar stuff before, he does provide a unique enough spin on it that it gives it an identity within his previous releases. Am I gonna return to this much in the future? Probably not, but I don't really find that all that much objectionable about it either. It's good for what it is. Still looking forward to whatever Bluetech plans on doing going from here, be it more ambient-centric material like this or his more groove-heavy and dubby stuff that he's done before. This guy's still pretty underrated, but, you know, on this release I'm probably overall feeling a 6.7 out of 10. But of course, it's just my opinion, you can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters, there are awesome people. You want to add yourself to that list or make me review something, link to my Patreon is in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.